Hi, this is Michael May, and this is my recipe for tomato gravy, which I learned partially in New Jersey and partially in Florida. I begin my recipe with a lot of fresh tomatoes. I like to dice them up and mix them up with paste, as well as garlic, onions, sausage, and ground beef. I dice up my garlic into fine pieces both for the gravy as well as for my meatballs. I like to grind up or dice up my tomatoes as small as I can, but not too small. I begin by sauteing my onions and garlic cloves with a little bit of olive oil to make them nice and soft. I then begin adding my tomatoes in and let that stew for about a half an hour. After which time I start adding in my diced tomatoes as well as my tomato paste, and even add in a little bit more garlic if I choose. Many times I use Hunt's tomato paste, although you can use other brands as well. Here you see I've added the diced tomatoes as well as the tomato paste into the mix. I fold them in very slowly. To cut back on the acidity, I add about half a teaspoon of sugar, just enough to cut the bitterness. To add a little bit more flavor, I also like to put in some red wine, almost of any kind, to give it a little bit of different flavor. Here I've got everything together minus the meats, and I'm continuing to let all of that stew together. At this time I'm preparing now to start putting together my meatballs and my sausage, because I like to sear them before I put them in the sauce. Here I'm getting ready to break down the hamburger meat and integrate in my special mix. I mix in there the breadcrumbs, Parmesan cheese, and garlic cloves. Here you see me adding all this together. No specific weights, it's done by taste and experience. This is how my kitchen looks in the middle of everything that I'm working on. The place is kind of a mess during the process, of course. Here you see the Parmesan cheese, the breadcrumbs, and the garlic, diced garlic on top of these 4 pounds of ground beef. Here I'm mashing them all together into a nice mix. It takes quite a bit of kneading to get them all together. It's important to knead it all together because you'll get spots in there where it's stronger of one flavor than the other, so it takes a while to get that right. Here I'm showing the meatballs that I've put together, 4, 8, 12, 16. There's 16 to 30 meatballs put in the fryer, and I use canola oil and I sear the outside. The purpose is to prevent the meatballs from going apart when they're in the sauce. Here's the meatballs pretty well on their way. They're no doubt rare on the inside at this time. I want them to cook in the sauce. I then integrate them as well as sausages. Although I haven't put the sausages in yet, I put the hamburger meat in there. Then I start dicing up my sausages, and I do basically the same thing. I want to sear them so they don't come out of their casing, so they can cook without falling apart. As I'm about to reach the end of this process, I start folding in my basil. Put a lot of basil in there. It's been on occasion that I have forgotten to put basil, which really makes me upset. And here you see me putting in the basil and any remaining onions that I've not put in originally, and fold those in nice and neat. Once I've got everything pretty well done, sausages, onions, garlic, basil, everything, I put the lid on this for a good 2.5 to 3 hours. In the past I have made the mistake of putting it on too high and or letting it cook too long, and I sear the tomato sauce. This way you put just enough in there and it'll be done in a couple of hours. From this point until I put the lid on, it was every bit of 2.5 hours of prep work leading up to this. So by the time you're all done, it's about 5.5, maybe 6 hours. And here I've gotten the lids on. This is the best time of the day. All you got to do is sit and wait for a few hours. I typically start at about 9 o'clock in the morning. Probably about 3, 4 o'clock it's all done. Hope you enjoyed this.